Hi everybody, Tim Walsh at the Illinois Fire Service Institute, talking about Mental Health Awareness Month, the month of May here. And we're bringing in our lead ponies, our lead instructors from resiliency and leadership development and decision making. And today I'm joined by Dan DeGrice. We were captains together in the city, opposite shifts. Danny was the captain of Truck 3, I was a captain of Squad 1, so we spent quite a bit of time together. But Dan has actual expertise in what we're talking about today, and suicide is what we're talking about. I'm going to have Dan introduce himself, and then we're going to get into a pretty serious topic. Danny?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. My name is Dan DeGrice. I'm retired out of Chicago, 4 years now. I spent 30 years in the fire service, retired as a battalion chief in Chicago, and also have spent the last 36 years in behavioral health, working with Illinois Fire Service Institute, the IFF, the National Council for Behavioral Health, and a few more. So happy to be here.
So something that we like to do here on campus is we like to have people that are actually in the service and have training outside the fire service, and Danny's one of those guys, so he's been an integral part of the program for a long time. And we're going to be talking about suicide today, which is a tough topic. It's a tough topic to talk about. It's almost taboo in the fire service to talk about it, but it's a problem. Let's talk about suicide, Dan. How big of a problem is it? What should we know about it?
Well, just the idea of suicide, right, is I could say that in our career, 30 plus years in the fire service, I don't think ever at the kitchen table we ever talked about suicide. So how can we be comfortable on the outside talking about suicide? So this is important that we get together and have that conversation about what suicide is. And the reality is it's been a national crisis all over the country and the world for decades.
So how do we take that information, which is very valuable, and dial it down to firehouse talk? How do we ask somebody about it? How do we, there's some stigma associated with it, which we'll talk about too, but sometimes people feel even if you ask about it, you're going to create somebody to do that.
Yeah, so it comes down to mentorship and leadership, and you have to actually have somebody that will be able to start that conversation. You got to have those hard conversations. And one of the biggest fears out there and the myths about it is that if I ask you about suicide, I'm going to put that in your head. And I come from the north side and you come from the south side. It'd be almost, you have to think about it. What's the likelihood of me getting you to transfer your thoughts in regards to the best team in Chicago, from the White Sox to the Cubs?
Right.
Probably slim to none. So if you think about suicide, it's probably one of the most difficult things to possibly do, to override your system that wants to live, to then think and then choose to die by suicide. So if just by asking that question you think that you're going to actually get me to die by suicide, it couldn't be further from the truth.
What are some steps that we can take as company officers, chief officers, blue shirt firefighters all across the country to try to combat this head on, to have a plan other than reaching out for professional service, right, which we'll post on the bottom of our screen here so that you have tools and techniques where you live, where you operate. How do we get over the hurdle?
Well, I'm going to use NIOSH. NIOSH has the NIOSH 5, right? Accountability, risk versus reward, incident command, size up, and the biggest one is communication.
Right.
9/11, communication. Fireground, communication. Families, communication. The number one reason that people called me when I ran our union's EAP program was because of relationships and work-related issues. And it all came down to communication. So this kind of dialogue is huge, so that other people that either are thinking about it or wondering about it be like, all right, Tim Walsh is talking about suicide, maybe I should be talking about it at roll call too.
Okay. And I know we started teaching that here at the Fire Service Institute in 2017, mandatory and resiliency training in all our programs. Now we have several standalone programs that Eddie Levy has talked about in the video that I did with him that are available for free to firefighters in the state of Illinois. And actually our awareness program that's on our website is free to anybody in the world. So if you're a firefighter from outside the state of Illinois, jump on there, take a look at it, fsi.illinois.edu. Some of this stuff not only affects the people we work with, but it affects our family. How do we deal through that issue?
Well, I'll just tell you, growing up in a family where my father was a Chicago police officer, former Marine, dealt with bipolar disorder and substance use. He was suicidal for the better part of his adult life, 35 years. We hid it because we were afraid to talk about it. We didn't know where to go. We didn't have avenues like us these days to say, hey, who do I talk to? Who do I get as a resource? how do I start that conversation with my father so that it doesn't get to the point where then he dies by suicide? And my belief system was completely opposite then, because I thought if I didn't talk about it, it wouldn't happen.
Right.
The reality is it has happened. And so what I've learned is that we got to have newsletters, conversations, tailboard talks, hot wash,
Roll call.
education, roll call, and just discussions and saying, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah, checking in like we've talked about with some of the other participants for Mental Health Resiliency Month. I think those are all great ideas, and we know we have resources with the 100 Club and the Associated Firefighters of Illinois. On their website, they have providers that are available to get back to firefighters. Are there any other providers or people that we should reach out to, Danny, that we can post on the bottom of the screen that you would think of off the top of your head?
I would think of the people closest to you, because while there's nationally known, and you could call 998 for a suicide hotline to talk to somebody, every department should have a peer support team. So go to your local union, your department, try to talk to the peer support personnel, your chaplain, your priest.
Thank you. Yeah, I forgot about that.
That type of stuff. And not necessarily from a religious standpoint, just that it is non-denominational and it's somewhat comforting.
Yeah, and those are numbers as a company officer and a chief officer you should have in your cell phone, so that you're not looking for them right at 2 in the morning when it becomes a problem. If you have a conversation with your crews ahead of time, and you have that information already pre-planned, like we've talked about in other videos, it's going to pay benefits.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the biggest demises of an incident commander or a chief officer is to think they have to know everything. You just have to know a person, right? We say know a guy.
Know a guy that has the answers, right?
Yeah.
And then pick the best one. Is there anything we're forgetting that we'll talk about for a very hard subject today?
I would just say that we in the fire service honestly have a ton of protective factors, right? You have to build a foundation of a home on a good foundation, whether it be a slab or a basement structure. Don't lose the protective factors that we have: the brother, the sisterhood, the conversation, the infighting, the outfighting. The drinking together is good. Breaking bread together is good. Watch out for the people that are isolating themselves, whether they're active or retired. If they stop going to retirement parties, if they stop calling you, if they don't respond to text, if you don't see them at promotional parties, check in with them.
Yeah, those are all great points. We appreciate you stopping in and having the tough conversation. And like we said, we'll post those websites at the bottom of the screen here. You can reach out to Dan through the Illinois Fire Service Institute or me. Our emails are available if you need help setting up a program in your local community if it's not available to you. And we appreciate you joining us for Mental Health Awareness Month, the month of May. Take care of each other out on the street.